Grant Morrow was not a diplomat, not a warrior, and certainly not someone who expected to be involved in alien politics. He was just a technician, a quiet, ordinary man from Earth who fixed broken machines and made sure things ran smoothly aboard the Solstice, a neutral starship that hosted important galactic meetings. The Solstice was currently floating in orbit above a beautiful blue-green planet. In the Thalora system, inside the ship, great leaders from many species had come together for peace talks. Humans were new to the galactic community, so the United Earth Council had sent their best ambassadors. Grant, however, was only there to fix a few power issues and make sure the cleaning bots didn't short-circuit. That morning, Grant received a message on his datapad. Maintenance request, Deck 7, VIP quarters, dust removal and armor preservation, priority, high. He sighed. The bots must have missed a spot again. He grabbed his tools, his cleaning spray, and a soft cloth before heading to Deck 7. When he arrived, the room was quiet, large, and much more elegant than he expected. Golden walls shimmered under soft lights, tall banners, embroidered with alien symbols, hung from the ceiling, and at the center, standing proudly on a platform, was a full set of armor, tall, sleek, and covered in fine dust. Grant looked around. No one was there. The guards outside had let him in without a word, assuming he was expected. Well, a job's a job, he said to himself. He walked up to the armor. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The design was strong but graceful, with sharp edges and detailed carvings. It looked ceremonial, but also powerful, like it could be used in battle if needed. He reached out and gently wiped the chest plate with his cloth. The dust came off easily, revealing a shining, polished surface beneath. Excited, he continued. Piece by piece, he carefully cleaned the armor, the shoulder guards, the gauntlets, the boots. As he worked, he felt strangely proud. It wasn't every day a human got to handle alien royal equipment. Look at that shine, he muttered, admiring his work. Just then, the doors behind him slid open with a soft hiss. Grant turned around and froze. Standing at the entrance was Queen Zelavari of the Zerali Matriarchy, ruler of one of the most powerful warrior civilizations in the galaxy. She was tall and graceful, her silver skin glowing under the lights. Her eyes were sharp like stars, and her long robe flowed behind her as she walked. She stopped when she saw him standing beside her armor. There was a long silence. Grant slowly raised his cloth. Hi, he said awkwardly. I was just cleaning. Queen Zelavari stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the armor. It sparkled now, brighter than ever before. Her expression changed. The proud, calm face of a ruler turned to surprise, then confusion, then something else Grant couldn't quite read. She looked at him directly. Her voice was calm, but serious. Do you know what that means? Grant blinked. What means? The armor. You polished it. Her voice was smooth but firm. Do you understand the message behind that action? Grant felt sweat form on his neck. Message? I was just trying to help. There was a request. Something about dust. Her eyes narrowed slightly. That armor is ceremonial. It is only polished by those who seek to bond. Bond, Grant repeated. You mean like connect the parts? I didn't touch the joints, I swear. No, she said. In our culture, only one who wishes to court the queen may polish her ceremonial armor. It is an act of honor, of deep meaning. Grant stared at her. He felt dizzy, his mouth open, but no words came out. Queen Zelavari turned to her two attendants who had followed her in. They looked stunned. He has done it, one whispered. It was witnessed, the other confirmed. Zelavari looked back at Grant. This act cannot be undone easily. It is a declaration. Grant held up both hands. Wait. I didn't declare anything. I'm not courting anyone. I just saw dust. One of the attendants stepped forward, tapping on a glowing screen. The act has been recorded. It was broadcast to the Zerali fleet. They have already acknowledged the bond signal. What signal? Grant cried. The shine, Zelavari said calmly. The armor reflects light in a way that signals bonding. Our people are watching. Grant backed up a step, still holding the cleaning cloth. This is a big misunderstanding. I'm a technician. I fix doors. I clean things. I didn't mean. She held up her hand, and he stopped speaking. I believe you, she said quietly. But the situation is already in motion. The others, they may not care about your intention. He blinked. Wait, are you saying? She nodded. You may have accidentally triggered a political bond. In the eyes of my people, you are now my chosen consort. Grant almost dropped the cloth. Grant Morrow sat on a smooth bench inside Queen Zelivari's private chamber. His hands were still a little shaky, and he kept looking at the polished armor across the room as if it might explode. Two Zerli guards stood silently at the entrance. Their faces were unreadable, their weapons at their sides. Grant couldn't even tell if they were angry or just doing their job. Across from him, Queen Zelivari stood tall, her arms crossed as she looked at him carefully. Her silver skin reflected the soft light in the room. She was quiet, calm, and incredibly serious. Grant broke the silence. Okay, so just to double check, me cleaning your armor means I've what? Proposed the Queen Zelivari gave a small nod. In the eyes of my people, polishing the Queen's ceremonial armor is an ancient ritual. It is only done by a chosen bondmate, someone who wishes to form a life union with the Queen. Grant blinked rapidly, but I didn't wish anything. I just saw dust and thought, hey, this armor could use some shine. I was doing my job. Yes, she said, but intention does not always change tradition. The action was clear. The armor is now shining, and the cameras recorded it. The bond signal has already spread through the Zerli communication net. Grant leaned forward, holding his head in both hands. This can't be happening. I'm a technician. I'm not royal consort material. I barely passed history class. Zelivari raised an eyebrow. You face the Queen's armor with no fear. That is already a rare trait. Grant looked up. Fear? I wasn't scared. I just didn't know what it meant. If someone told me touching your armor meant marry the Queen, I would have run the other way. That would have been seen as cowardice, she replied calmly. Grant groaned. I can't win. The Queen slowly sat down on a tall seat made of crystal-like metal. Her robe folded neatly around her legs. For a few moments, she studied him in silence. You are different from others I have met, she said. Most humans I've seen at these meetings speak in big words and carry themselves like they're trying to prove something. You were honest, direct. That's because I didn't know I was walking into a royal ritual, he said. Then he frowned. Wait, are you saying this kind of thing has happened before? Not in centuries, she said, but the ritual is still law. Once the armor is polished, the signal is sent, it is seen as a claim of union. And now, some of the old houses are watching closely. Grant looked up at her. Old houses? The noble houses of the Zerli matriarchy, Zelivari explained. Some support me, some do not. They are always looking for weakness or scandal. Let me guess, Grant said. A human suddenly becoming your bonded consort sounds like a scandal. To some, she agreed. To others, it could be a sign of peace or prophecy. Prophecy, he repeated. There's an old legend, she said, that a queen's strength will be renewed when one from the stars, not born of our blood, polishes her armor in a time of great change. Grant stared at her. And people believe this? Many do. Grant sat back. So, what happens? Now, is there a way to cancel this? There are only two ways to break the ritual, she said. 1. Both parties must stand before the Zerli High Council and declare that the bond was false. 2. A duel of truth, where the one who polished the armor faces a test of honor. Grant paled. A duel, it is usually symbolic, she said, but lately, some warriors treat it as a real challenge. This just keeps getting better. Grant muttered. In the first option, telling the council it was a mistake? She looked at him closely. That would make me appear weak. Many nobles are already waiting for a reason to challenge my rule. If I say I accepted a false bond, they may claim I cannot lead with strength. Grant sighed. He looked at her, really looked, Queen Zelavari wasn't just some cold leader. He could see now that she carried pressure like a mountain on her shoulders. Her people expected perfection, and any mistake could bring chaos. "So, what do you want to do?" he asked softly. She hesitated, just for a moment. "I want peace for my people, and now, I must decide whether this accidental bond can serve that goal." He nodded slowly. "And me? You must choose," she said. "If you step forward with me, we face the council and prove this bond has meaning, or at least, unity. If not, you will still face the duel." Grant stood up. "You're saying either I become your partner in front of your whole empire, or I fight someone who might break all my bones." She stood too, stepping closer. "You do not have to become what you are not, but you must be brave, whichever path you choose." He looked down at the cleaning cloth still in his hand. The same cloth that started this entire mess. "This was the worst job assignment I've ever taken." He muttered. Then he looked up. "But I'll do it. I'll stand with you at the council. I may not know how to give royal speeches, and I'm definitely not good with armor, but I can be honest, and I can try." Queen Zelavari tilted her head, surprised. "Then we prepare." 2 days later, Grant Morrow stood in the middle of a large circular arena deep inside the solstice. He was wearing an oversized exosuit that creaked every time he moved. Bright lights shined from above. Alien diplomats and military leaders watched. From raised seats, cameras floated in the air, broadcasting the event to millions across Zerly space. Grant swallowed hard. "This is just a symbolic duel," he whispered to himself. "Symbolic. Peaceful. Nothing to worry about." He glanced to the side, where Queen Zelavari stood tall in her ceremonial armor, the very same armor he had polished without knowing its importance. She gave him a short nod of respect. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, focused. Grant could tell she didn't fully trust what would happen next. The duel was supposed to be simple, a test of spirit and truth. No deadly weapons, no injuries. Just a formal show to prove that Grant had no intention of disrespecting Zerly tradition. That was the plan. But things changed when General Craxon, one of the Queen's loudest critics, stepped into the arena as Grant's opponent. Craxon was huge, even for a Zerly. He wore light armor, but his muscles looked like they were made of stone. He held a long staff, and his face showed a clear message. This would not be symbolic. "This is unfair," Grant whispered to one of the guards near the edge. "It is allowed." The guard replied. He volunteered. "That means it isn't open." Challenge. Volunteered. "He looks like he eats volunteers for breakfast." The guard said nothing else. In the stands, the Zerly nobles began to cheer. Some wanted to see the human fall. Others were just curious to see what would happen. The Queen stepped forward. "Let this duel begin." A loud chime echoed across the arena. Grant raised his arms in defense. His exosuit made a buzzing sound and locked into position. Mostly, one arm didn't respond, and his helmet display kept flashing warnings. Craxon didn't wait. With a roar, the general charged forward, spinning his staff like a giant windmill. Grant yelped and ducked, barely avoiding the first strike. The second one hit him square in the chest, sending him flying backwards into the sand. His exosuit sparked, and the right leg stopped moving. "I'm okay," Grant shouted, though he wasn't sure he meant it. The crowd laughed. Craxon marched toward him. "This is the one who touched royal armor. He cannot even stand." Grant gritted his teeth. "I didn't touch it. I cleaned it." He struggled to his feet, dragging his useless leg behind him. He remembered the Queen's words, "Be brave. Whichever path you choose." So, he thought, if I can't win with strength, maybe I can win with something else. As Craxon raised his staff for another strike, Grant hit a button on his wrist. The exosuit released a short blast of smoke. Grant used the moment to roll sideways and grab a handful of sand. He tossed it at Craxon's face. The general stumbled, growling. Grant didn't attack. Instead, he turned on his suit's speaker system and raised his voice. "People of the Zerly matriarchy," he said, "I didn't come here to fight. I came here because I made a mistake. I cleaned a piece of armor. That's all." The crowd went quiet, but I learned what it meant. and I respected it. That's why I'm here. Not to win a battle, but to stand beside your queen and show I meant no harm. Craxton, still wiping sand from his eyes, charged again. Grant moved aside just in time. Craxton's staff struck the ground, sending a shockwave through the arena. General, Grant said quickly, is hurting me really going to prove your point? Or will it show fear? Fear of a future where humans and Zerli work together? Craxton paused. He raised his staff again, but didn't swing. Queen Zelavari stepped into the arena. Her voice echoed clearly. That is enough. The crowd looked. To her, this human stood against a warrior of our people, she said. He did not run. He did not insult our ways. He used his mind when his body failed. He showed courage in his own way. Grant limped toward her, his suit sparking. I'd like to sit down now. The crowd laughed, not in mockery, but with honest amusement. Craxton lowered his staff. He is clever, the general said, and lucky. Luck is often the beginning of greatness. Zelavari replied. She turned to the crowd. Let it be known. The trial has been completed. The bomb was not a joke. It was a spark that may light something new. The audience gave a slow, respectful cheer. Grant blinked. Did we win? You did not fall. Zelavari said. That is enough. Later, as Grant sat in the medical bay getting his leg brace adjusted, the queen joined him. You handled yourself well, she said. I fell in sand and threw dirt in someone's face, he said. That is the Zerli way, she replied, smiling slightly. Victory through adaptation. He chuckled. So, what happens now? Now, she said, we face the council. Not as strangers, but as bonded allies. Grant sighed. Let's hope they don't ask me to polish anything else. The council chamber of the Zerli homeworld was one of the grandest places in the galaxy. A wide, circular hall with crystal walls and glowing pillars surrounded a central stage. On that stage now stood two figures who had everyone's attention. Queen Zelavari, tall and proud in her polished armor, and beside her, in a formal dark suit with a still-healing leg, stood Grant Morrow. It had been 1 week since the trial by combat on the solstice. News of the duel had spread across both human and Zerli space. Some praised Grant's bravery. Others laughed at the strange path this new alliance was taking. But now, all eyes were on this meeting, the official moment when the Queen and the human technician would face the High Council of the Zerli Matriarchy. 12 council members sat on high thrones made of stone and light. Each represented a noble house, some loyal to the Queen, others questioning her every move. An elder named Varnus, who wore a golden crest across his chest, was the first to speak. Queen Zelavari, your actions confuse many. Why did you allow a human to complete a bonding ritual meant only for warriors of our blood? The Queen's voice was strong and steady, because he completed it unknowingly. Yes, but with honor and heart. He then stood against one of our greatest generals and did not fall. Another counselor, Lady Rithka, leaned forward. But he is not of our kind. How can we trust that he understands our ways? Grant stepped forward. His heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. I didn't understand your ways at first. That's true, but I respected them as soon as I did. I never meant to insult anyone. I was just trying to help. But now, I want to do more than help. I want to build something better, together. There was silence. Then, to Grant's surprise, another voice spoke from the crowd, not from the council. A young Zerli noble rose to her feet. There's an old prophecy, she said. I have studied it. It speaks of one not born of stars who polishes the Queen's armor and brings light in a time of great change. Why do we ignore the sign? Murmurs filled the room. Ancient stories are not law, Varnus replied sharply. We must think with reason, not dreams. But the word prophecy had already planted a seed in the minds of many. Zerli culture deeply respected tradition and stories of the past. Some now looked at Grant not as a problem, but as a sign. Suddenly, a loud beep 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 echoed through the chamber. A Zerli officer rushed in with a data pad. Bowing quickly, my queen, he said, urgent report. Our border stations have been attacked, Everyone froze. By whom? Zelavari asked. Rogue warships. The officer said. Belonging to the house of General Craxton. Grant felt a chill down his spine. The same general who fought him in the trial. They refused to rule. The officer continued. They claim your bond with a human is proof of weakness. Zelavari's jaw tightened. They would risk war over pride. They call it cleansing tradition, the officer said. Rithka stood. You see, this is the danger of strange unions. It divides our people. No, Zelavari said firmly. This attack proves something else. It proves that some are so afraid of peace, they would burn everything to stop it. She turned to the council. We must not fear change. We must face it with strength. Grant Morrow did not come here as a conqueror. He came here with open hands, and when challenged, he did not run. That is the spirit we need now. Varnus hesitated. And what will you do about Craxton's forces? I will face them, Zelavari said, as queen. But I will not do it alone. She looked at Grant. He understood. He nodded slowly. I'll help. You are not a soldier. She reminded him no. He said, but I'm human. We don't always win with weapons. We win with ideas, with hope, and when we must, with grit. The council went quiet again. Then, one by one, some members gave a slow nod. Others remained silent, unsure. But the queen had made her choice, and she would act on it. A few hours later, Grant stood with Zelavari aboard her command ship, the Valcora, which was now heading toward the troubled border. He looked out the window as stars zipped past. This got out of hand fast. Zelavari gave him a rare smile. Welcome to royal life. I miss fixing doors. He said, you will return to that, in time. He turned to her. Do you really believe in that prophecy? I believe in what I see, she replied. And what I see is someone who changed everything, not with weapons, but with a cloth and a kind heart. He laughed softly. That's probably the weirdest compliment I've ever gotten. Ahead, the stars grew brighter. The ship was entering dangerous space. But something had changed. Grant wasn't just a technician anymore. He was part of something bigger, something strange and unexpected, but powerful, and he wasn't afraid. The Valcora, Queen Zelavari's command ship, flew through deep space like a silent spear. Its powerful engines hummed softly, but inside the ship, tension was high. The crew moved quickly and quietly. Every Zerli warrior knew what was at stake. General Craxton's rogue fleet had already attacked the border outposts. Now, they were preparing to strike the capital moon of Zolari Prime. Grant Morrow stood near a large window in the command center, staring at the glowing planet ahead. His reflection in the glass looked tired and nervous. He was still wearing his formal suit, but now it had a patch, the symbol of the Zerli matriarchy stitched over his heart. He turned as Queen Zelavari entered the room. She wore her polished armor again, the same one Grant had cleaned unknowingly. Starting all of this, our scouts report that Craxton has gathered 6 warships, she said. He wants a full battle. Grant took a deep breath. Can we stop him? Yes, but not with ships alone. She replied, his forces believe they are protecting tradition. We must show them something stronger than tradition. Unity. Grant nodded, though he wasn't sure how to do that. What do you need from me? You will stand beside me when I address the people, she said. And when the final moment comes, you must be seen. Seen doing what? He asked, standing as my bonded partner. Not in fear, but in strength. As the Valcora entered orbit, the crew prepared for battle. Defensive shields lit up. Fighters launched. The rogue fleet, already in formation, responded with a challenge. Grant joined Zelavari on the command platform. Around them, screens showed live feeds from across the system. Zerli citizens, military units, and diplomats were watching. Zelavari raised her hand, and her image appeared on every screen. People of the matriarchy, she said, her voice calm but powerful. You have heard many things in recent days. Some say I have broken tradition. Others say I have lost the right to lead. But I am still your queen, and I have not forgotten who I am. She turned slightly, and Grant stepped into view beside her. His hands were behind his back. He stood, tall, trying to look calm. This human, she continued, did not come to conquer. He came with no knowledge of our ways, yet he showed respect. When tested, he stood without fear. When challenged, he chose peace before pride, the Zirali. Soldiers on the bridge stood straighter. Some even nodded in agreement. I do not lead through force alone, the queen said. I lead through wisdom, and through the strength of those I trust. She placed her gauntleted hand lightly on Grant's shoulder. Today, I stand not just as your queen, but as one half of a bond that will help guide us into a new age, not of war, but of understanding. Then she looked directly into the main screen. General Craxon, if you are watching, hear me now. You fight not to protect tradition, but to feed your pride. I offer you one last chance. Stand down, or face the full strength of a united people. There was a long silence. Then a voice crackled over the comms. It was Craxon. You sound brave. My queen, he growled, but I see weakness in your eyes. I see a human beside you, dressed like a leader, but born from dust. I will never bow to such a bond. Zelivari's expression didn't change. Then you leave me no choice. The battle began. Craxon's ships fired first, launching energy blasts across space. The Valkyr responded with swift, controlled strikes. Fighters zipped through the void, weaving between bursts of light. Grant stayed inside the command room, watching the chaos on the screens. How long can we hold? He asked. Long enough, one of the officers replied. If we strike the flagship, Craxon's forces may fall apart. Zelivari turned to Grant. This is the moment. Will you come with me? Come with you? Where? To the enemy ship. Grant's eyes widened. Wait, boarding the ship, isn't that dangerous? Yes, she said. But if we stand together there, in front of Craxon and his supporters, we may end the fight without more bloodshed. Grant hesitated. Every part of him wanted to say no. But then he remembered everything that had brought him here. The armor, the trial, the council, the queen's belief in him. He nodded. Let's go. Minutes later, Zelivari and Grant, along with a small guard team, used a stealth pod to dock with Craxon's flagship. Inside, the halls were quiet, tense. Lights flickered overhead. The queen walked without fear, and Grant followed, his heart beating like a drum. They entered the command chamber. Craxon stood at the center, his red armor shining. Dozens of soldiers lined the walls, ready to attack. But when they saw Zelivari and the human beside her, many of them paused. Craxon, Zelivari said, her voice steady. And this now? The general raised his weapon. This human does not belong here. Grant stepped forward before the queen could speak. Maybe not, he said. But I'm here anyway. And I've seen enough to know that your way doesn't make you strong. It makes you afraid. A murmur spread through the soldiers. You talk too much. Craxon growled. Then let me say one last thing, Grant said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small cloth, the same one he had used to polish the queen's armor. I didn't understand your customs at first, but I respected them, and now I stand beside your queen, not because I planned to, but because I earned it. He tossed the cloth onto the floor between them. This is your choice. He said, keep fighting a war that breaks your people, or follow your queen into a future where we fight together. Craxon looked around. His soldiers were watching closely. Some lowered their weapons. A few even took a step back. Finally, the general let out a slow breath. I will not bow, but I will not destroy us either. He lowered his weapon. The battle was over. Back aboard the Valkyr, Zelivari stood with Grant once more. The news had already spread. The queen and her human consort had stopped the civil war. You did well, she said. I thought I was going to pass out, Grant admitted. She smiled slightly. You didn't. A full month had passed since the battle with General Craxon. The memory of war still lingered. But something new had begun, something better. Peace. Grant Morrow sat in the gardens of the Unity Hall, a shining new building constructed on the Zirali capital moon. Birds with crystal-colored wings flew overhead, and fountains whispered in the breeze. Green plants, both human and alien, grew together in careful rows. It was quiet here. far from the buzzing diplomats and crowded chambers. He held a cup of warm herbal tea and stared at the sky. Stars blinked above the glass roof. So this is what peace looks like, he whispered to himself. Footsteps echoed softly behind him. Queen Zelavari approached, dressed in a simple dark robe, not armor. Not formal wear, just something light and elegant. She sat beside him without a word, her presence calm and strong as always. The council voted. She said, "They have approved the Human-Zerli Alliance Treaty. It is official now." Grant smiled. "That's good. Finally, something without weapons." "Not quite," she said with a small smirk. There were still arguments, but none strong enough to stop it. He took a sip of his tea. And Craxon, he has been given a place as guardian of the outer worlds. Not a punishment, but far from the heart of power. He accepted it without protest. Grant leaned back. "Do you think he's changed?" "No," she answered honestly. But he saw that others had. They sat in silence for a while, watching the small animals wander between the plants. The garden was quiet, but the world beyond it was buzzing with excitement. Trade routes were opening. Science teams from both species were working together. Language lessons had begun in schools. Children from Earth would soon learn Zerli customs and vice versa. Grant looked at the Queen. "You know, I'm still not sure how all this happened. You polished my armor," she said simply. He laughed. "By accident, perhaps," she replied, "or perhaps fate saw something neither of us expected." Grant looked down at his hands. "I wasn't a leader. I didn't train for any of this. You became one anyway," she said. "You faced a crowd, a council, and a warrior with nothing but courage and honesty. You showed strength of a different kind." He looked at her, quiet. "For a moment, do you think the others will accept this bond? I mean, really accept it?" "Not all," she said. "But enough. The world does not change in a day. It begins with a step, then another, and another." He smiled. "That sounds like something a queen would say." She gave him a soft look. "It is something a bonded queen says to her consort." Grant blinked, still not used to that title. "Get used to it," she said, amused. "The next summit is in 2 weeks. You'll be giving the opening speech." He nearly spilled his tea. "I thought you were joking about that." "I never joke about public speeches," she replied. Grant groaned. "Great. First I polished armor by accident. Now I'm giving galactic speeches. What's next?" "Teaching Zerli how to dance." She looked at him seriously. "Actually, there's a cultural event next month. A dance demonstration would show unity." He gave her a long, tired look. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "A little," she admitted. They both laughed, and for a moment, all the worries faded. Later that evening, a ceremony was held inside Unity Hall. Hundreds of guests attended. Zerli nobles, human leaders, ambassadors from other species, and young students from both worlds. Queen Zelavari stood on the grand platform, wearing her formal royal robe. Beside her stood Grant, dressed in a clean white suit with the Alliance symbol on his shoulder, a glowing circle joined by two stars. When Zelavari began to speak, the hall became silent. "Today," she said, "we honor something that began not with war or conquest, but with a simple act of care. A piece of armor, polished by a stranger. A ritual completed by accident but followed by truth." She turned toward Grant. "He came to us without knowing our customs, yet he stayed, learned, and helped us find peace. This is the future we now walk toward together." The crowd applauded. Some stood. Some even wiped away quiet tears. Grant was invited to speak next. He stepped up to the platform. His heart beat loudly, but he smiled. "I never thought I'd be standing here," he began. "I never even thought I'd leave Earth. I just fixed things. I cleaned things. And one day, I cleaned the wrong thing." Laughter filled the hall. "But that wrong thing became something good." He continued. "I didn't understand your world or your ways. But I learned, I tried, and I found something I didn't expect: respect, trust, and even friendship." He looked at the Queen. "And maybe something more applause." He took a breath. "So, I guess the lesson is, Sometimes peace doesn't start with big plans or great battles. Sometimes it starts with a dusty helmet and a soft cloth, and a choice to stay, to try, and to care. The applause grew louder. The moment was simple but powerful. As the night ended, and the lights in Unity Hall dimmed, Grant and Zelavari stepped out into the starlight. The gardens were quiet again. "You spoke well," she said. "I was scared the whole time," he admitted. "That makes it even more impressive." They walked slowly through the garden paths, the stars above watching silently. "So," Grant said. "What now?" "Now," she replied, "we build, we teach, we lead, and maybe we dance," he groaned. "Still not ready for that. You will be," she said, smiling. And with that, they continued walking together into a new future.